She has spent years at war with dragons, the creatures who ruined her kingdom and stole her people. So when the Dragon Emperor, Cypher, offers peace in exchange for her hand, Lorelei knows the contract marriage is a trap. But her father accepts before she can refuse. Suddenly, the princess who was fighting dragons is walking into the Emperor's palace as his bride-to-be, armed with a secret plan to stop him once and for all. Except Lorelei isn't the only princess there. 9 women have been summoned to vie for the Dragon Emperor's favor. Not because he wants a wife, but because he needs a mate. A woman capable of giving him an heir. Now Lorelei isn't just pretending to marry her enemy. She's competing for him. She must get close enough to share his bed, close enough to act. Unfortunately, every moment in his presence feels charged, intimate, as if they're both battling an urge they cannot fully control. And the longer Lorelei plays along, the harder it becomes to resist the pull of her enemy. She tells herself it's enchantment, a trick, a spell, anything but the truth. Because if this attraction isn't magic, then it might be fate. And that would change everything. Chapter 1. Champagne flute in hand, standing in the grand ballroom of the Dragon Emperor's palace, Princess Lorelei was trying not to think about how many of the people around her might not be people at all. That was the problem with dragons. You couldn't tell by looking. The man in burgundy velvet, dragon or human. The woman in emerald silk, dragon or human. There was no way to know, not until they shifted, and by then it was usually too late. For most of her life, Lorelei hadn't even known dragons could take human form. As far as the human kingdoms were concerned, dragons were monsters, winged beasts that took their sacrifices and burned their villages. Then the Dragon Emperor had sent envoys who spoke of dragon cities in the clouds, of civilization beyond anything humans had imagined, who offered peace. The human kingdoms had been skeptical, but the Dragon Emperor had been persuasive, offering territory, wealth, protection. He'd opened trade routes and promised, in writing, that the sacrifices would end. But in exchange, "Human dragon doesn't matter," her brother Caspian whispered. "They're all here to celebrate your engagement." Lorelei snorted. "Until 6 months ago, we were at war." "War," Caspian smiled. More like humans trembled and sacrificed their daughters to be left in peace. "Indeed, so really, not much has changed. We are all still afraid and—" "You're about to be sacrificed," Caspian concluded. "Though the Emperor plans to marry you, not eat you alive." "The same difference," Lorelei muttered. "A marriage contract. That's what it would take for the dragons to accept peace, with Lorelei specifically, which made absolutely no sense. She'd actually laughed when her father had told her, "This has to be a trick." Perhaps, but their emperor is offering a true peace treaty, and he's promised the sacrifices will end. Lorelei's chest had gone tight. She'd thought about Elvina immediately, her maid, her friend, barely 16 when her name had been drawn. Lorelei had tried to cut her free with nothing but a sword and desperate courage. It hadn't been enough. "What does he want in exchange?" "You, as his empress." Lorelei had gaped. "And what happens when he realizes I can't give him children?" Because that was the reality. Lorelei was barren, thanks to the dragon who'd struck her down when she'd tried to save Elvina. Her brief marriage had ended in annulment. "You're human," her father had said. "He probably doesn't expect you to bear him an heir." "So what does he expect? A nice prop?" "This is our chance, Lorelei, to secure peace." She'd fled to her chambers. Caspian had found her an hour later. "I think it's a trap," he'd said. "The Dragon Emperor suddenly wants peace? Wants to marry a human woman he's never met? They've been taking our people for centuries. Why would that suddenly stop?" He'd been right. "Father's going to accept," she'd said quietly. "I know, so the question is, what are you going to do about it?" 2 months later, Lorelei had arrived in the dragon capital with her brother at her side, and a necklace around her throat that hopefully contained enough dragon poison to kill the most powerful being alive. No one outside of Lorelei's family even knew such poison existed. And somewhere in this palace, the Dragon Emperor himself was preparing to make his entrance. Her hand drifted to the necklace as the music stopped, someone proclaiming, "His Imperial Majesty, Cypher of House Ignis, Emperor of the 5 Kingdoms, Lord of the Eternal Flame. Lorelei stopped listening, heart hammering. Guards lined up, and she felt the temperature drop as something ancient crossed the threshold. She'd prepared herself for something terrible, but she hadn't prepared herself for the beautiful man in the doorway. For his sharp cheekbones or his mouth, obscene in its perfection with a full lower lip, the upper one curved with just enough cruelty to make her stomach drop. He was tall, easily a head taller than any man in the room, with shoulders broad enough that her first thought was what it would feel like to be held against that chest. Her mouth went dry, and Lorelei's hand flew to the necklace, gripping the sapphire until the metal cut into her palm. He was a dragon, a monster. This attraction had to be magic. Dragons could do that, couldn't they? Cypher moved into the ballroom, greeting people with polite nods. His expression remained distant, bored, until his eyes found hers across the ballroom. The noise faded. There was only him and those burning eyes locked onto hers. Her knees nearly buckled. The Emperor paused, his eyes widening, his lips parting, his body rigid like he'd just been struck. His mouth curved into a smile. He held her gaze for one more heartbeat, then turned away, continuing through the crowd. Lorelei stood frozen, pulse hammering. What was that? An attendant appeared at her elbow. "Princess, if you would come with me, please." The attendant led her to the eastern wall where other women were gathering, beautiful women in elaborate gowns, all looking confused. She recognized Princess Annabella of Ambrose, Lady Selena of Creth. Were these all human princesses? "If you would stand here, Your Highness." They were arranged in a line now, 10 of them, all beautiful, all noble. Lorelei's stomach dropped. She found Caspian, his expression tight with fury. "Nervous?" Annabella asked. "You should be." Lorelei's jaw tightened. "Excuse me?" "May the best woman win." "Win what?" But the crowd was parting, the Dragon Emperor walking toward them, and Lorelei's world narrowed. "This isn't my engagement ball." Cypher stopped in front of them. Up close, he was even more devastating. Lorelei was 5th in line, close enough to catch his eyes move over each of them. "Welcome, princesses of the human kingdoms." His voice was rich and commanding. "Princesses, plural. You are all invited here under the premise of a political alliance. I thank you for accepting. Which is why I must be honest about the true nature of this gathering." Lorelei's hands clenched. "I require a mate, for only a true mate bond can produce an heir, and such bonds cannot be forced. They simply are, or they are not." He paused. "For decades I have searched amongst other dragons, but recently a dragon king found his mate with a human woman. I could hardly believe it, but I supposed there is no harm in trying. I will not be choosing a bride tonight. Instead, I will take willing volunteers as mistresses. I will court each of you in turn, and should any of you form the mate bond with me, and prove capable of bearing my heir, she will become my empress." The ballroom erupted, gasps, whispers, and Lorelei gaped. She'd come here thinking she was the Emperor's chosen bride, but she was just one option among many. The humiliation burned. And worse, the memory of how she'd stared when he entered, how her body had responded. He'd probably thought she was just another desperate princess angling for a crown. Heat flooded her face. Cypher was walking down the line now. Before she could think better of it, the words spilled out. "Is this how dragons shop for mares?" The ballroom went dead silent. Cypher's eyebrows rose, but Lorelei went on. "What's next? Will you be assessing our teeth too?" Someone behind her gasped. Cypher tilted his head, smile widening. "You object to the process, princess?" Lorelei of Keldorn. And yes, this may come as a surprise, but women do not tend to love being paraded like livestock. Cypher took a step closer. "Yet you came here willingly, didn't you?" "I was told this was a betrothal, a political alliance, not a competition for your bed." Cypher's smile turned predatory. Then he addressed the ballroom. "I've made my decision for this evening." Every person held their breath. "I will meet with one of you tonight, privately. Should Her Royal Highness be willing, of course." All the women went rigid. Cypher let the silence stretch. Then his gaze locked with Lorelei's. Intense, focused, like she was the only person in the room. Her breath caught as he took a step forward. Just one, but deliberate, His lips parted. The crowd leaned forward. He's going to say my name, Lorelai thought as Cypher held her gaze, then smiled, and turned away. Princess Annabella of Ambrose. Lorelai's mind blanked. Annabella stepped forward. Your Majesty, I'm honored. Cypher extended his hand. Shall we? He didn't look at Lorelai at all, just walked past her like she was invisible. To humiliate her, punish her for speaking up. She'd come here with a simple plan. Be his chosen bride, get close, strike when he was vulnerable. Now she was just another candidate in a competition she hadn't prepared for. She'd come here to kill the Dragon Emperor, but she wouldn't be able to do that if she couldn't seduce him first. Chapter 2. Lorelai paced her chambers like a caged animal, still wearing the ball gown that now felt like a costume of her own humiliation. He looked right at me, she complained. Smiled, stepped toward me, and then walked away with Annabella? Caspian leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Does it matter who he chose? Lorelai whirled on him. Of course it matters. How am I supposed to trap him if he's bedding some other woman? She forced herself to take a breath. The plan was to get close to him. I can't do that from a distance. Right, Caspian nodded. But he'll choose you eventually. Be patient. Patient, Lorelai groaned. The humiliation was still burning through her veins, hot and acidic. And he thinks he's so clever, she muttered. With his stupidly beautiful face. No one looks like that naturally. Caspian's eyebrows rose. Should I be worried? Lorelai shot him a look. He's using a spell, obviously, to lower defenses with those ridiculous cheekbones, and his perfectly tousled hair. Sister, and have you seen his shoulders, or his sapphire eyes? Lorelai crossed her arms defensively. The whole package is designed to make women stupid. Well, it won't work on me. Right, Caspian said slowly, deeply unconvinced. Lorelai took a breath. The anger was draining away, leaving something heavier in its wake. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I need this to work. For a moment, they were just siblings again. Do you remember Elvina? Lorelai asked. Your maid, of course. I failed to save her. She was only 16, and then Father practically threw me at them. Her voice hardened. Despite everything they did. The rage came flooding back. I need to kill this emperor. He commands them all. Every dragon, every sacrifice, it all flows from him. If I can't have children, if I can't save Elvina, at least I can end this. Caspian squeezed her shoulder. You will. We just need to get you close. A sharp knock on the door made them both freeze. Come in, Lorelai called. A servant entered, bowing deeply. Princess Lorelai, His Imperial Majesty requests your presence. Lorelai's heart jumped. Now? Immediately, Your Highness. If you would follow me. She stood, smoothing her gown with hands that wanted to shake. Lead the way. Her hand drifted to the necklace at her throat. Don't wait up, she told Caspian with a smirk. Be careful, he said. At the door, Lorelai paused. If this went wrong, if Cypher knew about the poison, if this was a trap. But she couldn't think like that. She followed the servant into palace corridors that seemed endless. Dragon motifs everywhere, carved into walls, woven into tapestries, inlaid in gold. Why had he summoned her now, after choosing Annabella? They climbed stairs, higher and higher, the corridors narrower, private quarters. They were going to his chambers, she realized as her stomach flipped. This was what she needed, privacy, a chance to get close. But that meant being alone with him. With those eyes and that body that had made her forget why she was there. Focus, she told herself. You're stronger than dragon magic. The servant stopped at massive carved doors. His Majesty is inside, Princess. She bowed and retreated quickly. Behind those doors was the Dragon Emperor, the man who commanded every dragon, who was responsible for Elvina, for her barrenness, for centuries of human suffering, and who also happened to be the most beautiful man alive. She touched the necklace one last time and pushed the doors open. She saw a massive fireplace, an enormous bed, and then movement by the windows. Cypher stood with his back to her, silhouetted against starlight. And he wasn't wearing a shirt. That's cheating, Lorelai thought, gaping at his back. He turned slowly, and Lorelei's brain short-circuited. His chest was defined in a way that suggested he didn't just command armies, he trained with them. Firelight played across bare skin, across muscle that shifted with each breath. She jerked her eyes back up to his face, burning. He was watching her, those glowing eyes tracking every moment of her inspection. "Princess Lorelei," he said, amused. "I'm glad you could join me." He took a step toward her, and Lorelei's mouth went dry. "Stop looking at his abs," she thought. "Stop looking at his abs." "Your Majesty," her brain finally formed words. "You summoned me." "I did." Another step. He stopped just out of reach. Close enough to touch if she moved forward. Close enough to see the faint glow beneath his skin, the way his chest rose and fell. Lorelei swallowed hard. The plan. Seduce him. Get close. Strike. But how was she supposed to seduce someone when all she could think about was what that perfect mouth would feel like? "Tell me, Princess." Cypher paused. "Am I making you nervous?" And Lorelei realized, with a clarity that cut through the fog of desire, that she was in deep trouble. Chapter 3. "Where's the other princess?" she heard herself ask. "Annabella, the one you chose?" The words escaped before Lorelei could stop them, and she immediately wanted to take them back. Cypher's eyebrow rose, a knowing smile curving his lips. "Jealous, Princess?" Lorelei's spine went rigid. "Worried, actually." She lifted her chin. "For all I know, you've eaten her." Cypher looked genuinely offended. "I wouldn't eat a human," he said with complete sincerity. "My body is a temple." Lorelei gasped, half shocked, half outraged. "The princess retired for the evening." Cypher snorted, clearly delighted. "I don't think she was quite ready to be my mistress yet." Lorelei processed this slowly. "So, one has to be ready, then?" Cypher turned to face her. "Willing," he corrected deliberately, his voice dropping. "Willing is the better word." Lorelei couldn't help herself. A laugh escaped, bitter and sharp. "Oh, so you like your women willing, do you?" She crossed her arms. "How noble of you." "Of course," Cypher said. "A bond would be unlikely to form should my mistress not be." Then he began moving toward her. Slowly, deliberately. Each step eating up the space between them until he was right there, towering over her. Lorelei's breathing had gone shallow. Her lips parted. She watched his pupils dilate, swallow up the color until only a thin ring of fire remained. "So?" Cypher asked. Lorelei blinked. "So, what?" His gaze intensified. "Are you willing, Princess?" Her breath caught. Heat flooded through her entire body, a wave that started low in her belly and spread outward. He was asking, right now, tonight. Her mind raced even as her body screamed its answer. She had the poison. This was the opportunity she'd been waiting for. Her mouth opened, but the words wouldn't come. Cypher sighed. His hand came up, slowly, and one finger traced her cheek with devastating gentleness. The touch sent electricity arcing through her. "Perhaps not, then," he murmured. Then he turned away, dismissing her. "Wait," Lorelei protested, breathless. But Cypher didn't pause, just kept walking, shoulders set, stride purposeful. Panic clawed at her throat. "Wait, She couldn't let this opportunity slip away. "You may return to your chambers, Princess," he said, reaching the wine decanter. "I won't keep you." The dismissal stung like a slap. Lorelei scrambled for something, anything. "Traditionally, we humans have drinks first." She gestured toward his wine. "You know, get to know each other?" Cypher finally looked at her, one eyebrow raised. "Do you?" The words dripped with skepticism. Fascinating. The condescension made something hot twist in Lorelei's chest. "Well, I'm sorry," she snapped. "But you can't expect me to just—" She gestured helplessly. "Your Highness, if you're uneasy, you may leave." Cypher waved toward the door. "Nothing is keeping you here." Lorelei's pride flared. "I'm not uneasy. I am, in fact, very easy." Cypher snorted. Actually snorted with laughter, the sound rich and warm. "That's not what I meant," Lorelei said, realizing. "All right." He beckoned her with one finger. "Just that, a simple gesture. Come here." She found it infuriating. The arrogance, the presumption. Then again, this was why she was here. to get close enough to poison him. Cypher waited. Well? Lorelei blinked. Well, what? His smile sharpened. Go ahead. He paused. Seduce me. Lorelei froze. What? Cypher leaned back against the window ledge, arms crossed, waiting. Seduce me, he repeated. Show me why I shouldn't call one of the other disposable human princesses and keep you instead. Lorelei's hand moved before her brain could catch up. Crack! Her palm connected with his cheek, the sound echoing through the chamber. Silence. Then Cypher laughed. He turned back to face her, eyes bright with genuine delight. Meanwhile, Lorelei was shaking with pure, incandescent rage. How dare you! Her voice came out low and dangerous. How dare you speak to me like I'm some common... Cypher stood abruptly. Suddenly he was in her space, towering over her. How dare I? His voice was soft, deadly soft. I told you that you could leave. He leaned closer. You chose to stay. His eyes bored into hers. Presumably because you long to be my mistress, or perhaps even my wife. For why else would you be here? Lorelei opened her mouth, but before she could speak, he bent. His lips brushed her ear, sending shockwaves through her body. Unless, of course... His breath was hot against her skin. You're here for a different reason. To kill me? Perhaps? Lorelei's breath caught. You really think I wouldn't find out? Cypher asked, his voice soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. Then his hand found her lower back, warm palm pressing through fabric, pulling her forward, against him, his bare chest against her body, every ridge of muscle pressing into her. She gasped. The sensation was overwhelming. She could feel everything, every beat of his heart, the iron-hard length of his arousal pressing against her belly. He wanted her. The knowledge shot through her like lightning, and her hands were sliding up his chest, over all that bare skin, hot and smooth and hard. She felt him shudder, felt his control slip. I have powers beyond your imagination, princess. His lips moved against her neck. And an entire army of informants at my disposal. His hand spread wider on her back, possessive. Not all of them dragons. His breath ghosted over her throat. Some you probably thought were your friends. He nuzzled into the space between her neck and shoulder, and Lorelei trembled. She tried to speak. Cypher lifted his head, met her eyes. If you want to succeed... His gaze dropped to her mouth. Lingered there. I suggest you be a little more clever. His thumb stroked slowly up her spine. His gaze dropped to her lips again. Lorelei found her voice. I'm not trying to kill you, she whispered. Cypher's eyebrow arched. No? Lorelei shook her head. No. The lie hung between them. They both knew it was a lie. Then Lorelei pressed her lips to his. Lightning and fire, every nerve ending lighting up at once. Cypher responded immediately, his hand fisted in her hair, angling her head exactly how he wanted it. The kiss deepened, neither of them gentle. His tongue slid against hers, and the sensation made her knees buckle. She made a sound. Cypher groaned in response. His hands tightened on her, and suddenly they were moving. He was walking her backward, still kissing her, until her back hit the wall. The impact drove the breath from her lungs, but she didn't care. His body was pinning her there, all that heat and hardness pressing her into stone, and his mouth was still on hers and his hands were everywhere. Her back arched, pressing her breasts against his chest, and she felt his sharp intake of breath. Then Cypher stepped back, leaving her gasping and disoriented. Good night, princess, he said, chest heaving. You may return to your chambers. Lorelei stared at him, too stunned to move. Cypher was already turning away, like nothing had happened, like that kiss, that world-ending, reality-shattering kiss, meant nothing at all. Chapter 4. Lorelei had been in the Dragon Emperor's palace for 3 days since that kiss, and she hadn't seen him since. She was here to kill him, not pine after him. Unfortunately, her body didn't seem to understand that. Every night she woke from dreams she couldn't quite remember. His hands on her skin, his mouth trailing fire down her throat. She'd wake gasping, an ache between her legs that no amount of cold water could ease. It was humiliating, and it was all his fault. It had to be some kind of enchantment. She'd been married before and never felt this desperate, clawing need. Evening found Lorelei on her balcony, staring at a plate of food she had no appetite for. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold that reminded her too much of his eyes. Everything reminded her of him. She poured herself wine, took a long drink, then another. Below, the capital sprawled in all directions, and above, dragons. Several large shapes wheeled through the air, silhouetted against the dying light. They were beautiful, Lorelei had to admit, the way they moved with such power and precision. One dragon in particular caught her attention. Larger than the others, with black scales that gleamed in the fading light. Lightning crackled across its wings in faint, dancing arcs. Lorelei leaned forward, wineglass forgotten. She knew, with bone-deep certainty, that it was him. Zephyr. Heat flooded through her at the thought of his name. The dragon circled the palace once, twice, then dove. Lorelei's breath caught as he pulled up at the last moment, landing somewhere out of sight. She imagined him shifting, scales melting back into skin. Her thighs clenched. She drained her wineglass and immediately poured another. He wasn't going to choose her. She knew that now. It had been 3 days. 3 days he spent with the other princesses. He'd invited her here not because he wanted her, but because he knew she was a threat. Which meant, if she wanted any opportunity to complete her mission, she'd have to create it herself. I'll have to seduce him. The thought sent heat spiraling through her belly. She'd have to be smart about it, strategic. Because he had some kind of hold over her, some enchantment that made her lose her mind whenever he was near. Lorelei poured more wine. The world had soft edges now. She'd need to catch him alone, make herself irresistible. She could do this. She would do this. Another glass, just to be sure. When Lorelei stood, stars were appearing and the balcony tilted slightly. She grabbed the railing, blinking hard. Not that it mattered. Time to find the Dragon Emperor. In the palace corridors, the walls seemed to wave slightly. Lorelei put one hand on the wall as her guards materialized behind her. The tall one cleared his throat. Your Highness, perhaps you should return to your chambers? Lorelei waved her hand. I'm going to see the Emperor. The nodding made everything spin in interesting ways. The guards exchanged glances. Your Highness, it's quite late. Perhaps in the morning. No, now. Lorelei started walking. The thing was, she had no idea where Cypher's chambers were, but somehow her feet knew the way. She turned left without thinking, then right, then up a staircase. There was a warmth in her chest, a pull, like a thread connecting her ribs to something distant. This way. Then she was standing in front of those massive carved doors. One of the guards stepped forward. Your Highness, I really think... Shh. Lorelei put her finger to his lips. I've got this. She knocked on the door. Hard, then harder when there was no immediate response. Your Majesty, her voice echoed. I know you're in there. The door swung open, and there he was. Candlelight painted shadows across his chest, and his hair was slightly damp. Fancy meeting you here, Lorelei greeted. Cypher's eyebrow rose. Fancy meeting me here, in my room? Lorelei beamed at him, trying to step inside with devastating grace. But her foot caught on the threshold, and she pitched forward with a small yelp. Cypher's hands shot out, catching her by the waist. And suddenly they were touching. She could see his pulse beating in his throat. Her hands landed on his chest and started moving, exploring. Up over his shoulders, God's, his shoulders, then back down, over his chest, his abs, hard as stone. Lower. His hand caught her wrist. Lorelei, he warned. She looked up. His eyes were glowing brighter than she'd ever seen them, nearly gold. His jaw was clenched tight. I can't help it, she informed him. It is your fault for enchanting me. For... He paused, swallowed. Enchanting you? Yes, she swayed, and he held her upright. You've cast a spell on me. Cypher stared at her for a long moment. You've been drinking, haven't you, Lorelei? The way he said her name made her stomach flip. Not at all, she replied firmly. Then, well, maybe, a little. A little? Cypher repeated. A little more than I should have, Lorelei conceded as the room swayed. But it doesn't matter, because I have something important to tell you. Do you? His thumbs were stroking small circles on her waist. Yes, she said. I resent you. You resent me? I resent that I can't stop thinking about you, Lorelei clarified. Cypher winced. Lorelei, every night I dream about you, she continued. About that kiss. About your hands on me. She slid her hands up to his neck, fingers threading into his hair. What did you do to me? Cypher's hands tightened on her waist almost painfully. You're drunk, he said, but his voice had gone hoarse. He wanted her. She could see it, feel it, the tension in his body, the way his gaze kept dropping to her mouth. You should go, he said. Don't want to. Lorelei pressed closer until she could feel the heat of him seeping through her gown. Her hands slid from his hair down his neck, over his shoulders. This is a terrible idea, Cypher muttered, but he hadn't let go of her. His hands were still on her waist, thumbs still stroking. For a moment, she thought he was going to kiss her. Wanted him to kiss her with an intensity that stole her breath. His head dipped. His mouth came inches from hers. She could feel his breath ghosting across her lips. Then he stopped. You need water, he said, stepping away. Lorelei swayed without his support. And something for the hangover you're going to have. He moved toward a side table, putting distance between them. I'm not going to have a hangover, Lorelei protested. I feel wonderful. A lie. She felt dizzy and hot and achy and desperate. But also wonderful, because he was here. Cypher returned with a glass of something that shimmered faintly. Drink this, he said. It's a hangover cure. She took the glass, sniffed it suspiciously. If you poison me, I'll be very annoyed, she declared, making him smile. Cypher was watching her with an expression that made her chest ache. You're cute when you pretend you don't want to kiss me, she murmured. The exhaustion hit her all at once. The wine, the medicine, the days of stress and unfulfilled desire. Her legs went weak. Cypher caught her before she could fall, lifted her easily, one arm under her knees, the other supporting her back. Lorelei's head fell against his shoulder. She felt him sigh, felt him press his face into her hair for just a moment. You're going to be the death of me, princess, he murmured. Lorelei smiled, eyes already closed. Chapter 5. Lorelei opened her eyes and stared at her familiar ceiling. The last thing she remembered was falling asleep against Cypher's arms. She sat up with a gasp. She was still wearing her gown from last night, but someone, he, had tucked her carefully under the covers. The memory crashed back. Wine. So much wine. Deciding to seduce him. Lorelei covered her face with her hands and groaned. He'd carried her back, all the way through the palace without waking her. Lorelei forced herself to bathe and dress. When she emerged, breakfast had been laid out. She sat and nibbled at the bread, her mind replaying last night. What would she say when she saw him? A knock at the door made her heart jump. Come in, she called. Cypher stepped through and Lorelei froze. He closed the door, then leaned against it, arms crossed, that insufferable smile playing at his lips. What are you doing here? She asked. Cypher's eyebrow rose. Good morning to you too, princess. He pushed off the door and walked to her table, his eyes dropping to her barely touched breakfast. I came to make sure you'd sobered up. Lorelei's face flamed. I'm perfectly sober. Just like I was perfectly sober last night, too. Cypher's smile widened. Really? He picked up her teacup, brought it to his lips, took a slow sip while maintaining eye contact. So you were sober when you stumbled into my chambers and ran your hands all over me? Lorelei stood abruptly. I was not stumbling. No? He tilted his head. Of course not. I was walking with purpose. He laughed. With purpose, into my arms. Her face was burning. You're the one who caught me. You could barely stand. Then if you were sober, you meant everything you said? Everything you did? Trap. If she wasn't drunk, she'd meant every confession. If she was drunk, she admitted weakness. You're infuriating. Whatever I said, I didn't mean any of it. Cypher came closer. None of it? Not the part about me enchanting you? Her breath caught. Or how you can't stop remembering our kiss. His breath was hot against her skin. Lorelei's eyes fluttered closed. I was clearly under the influence of... Of? He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. Of wine, obviously. Obviously. He didn't sound convinced. So you don't find me attractive? Lorelei lifted her chin. Not at all. You're quite banal, really. His eyebrow arched. Banal. His hand came up, fingers trailing along her jaw. That's not what you said last night. I was being sarcastic. He leaned in, bracing one hand on the table beside her. The other cupped her face, his thumb stroking her cheekbone. Were you? Because your body is saying something very different. And he was right. Her pulse was racing, and she couldn't look away from his mouth. Your pupils are dilated, he murmured, his thumb tracing her bottom lip. Your breathing is shallow. Your pulse, his other hand pressed against her throat, is racing. He leaned closer. You amuse me, princess. Lorelei blinked. What? I amuse you? He nodded, his hand sliding to cup her nape. More than anyone has in centuries. His other hand tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Your defiance, he murmured. Your terrible lies. The way you look at me like you can't decide whether to kiss me or kill me. Lorelei's breathing had gone ragged. Which is why I plan to make you my mistress. He traced her bottom lip with his thumb. If you're willing. His eyes bored into hers, and she could see the hunger there. Are you willing, Lorelei? The question hung heavy between them. You don't plan to make me your mistress. She put her hand on his chest, fingers splaying wide over his heart. I plan to make you my lover. Cypher went very still. His chest rose and fell more rapidly under her palm. Is that so? He whispered. Lorelei nodded. He studied her for a long moment. His hand slid to cup her jaw, tilting her face up. Then, good. He leaned in, his lips brushing her ear. Because you'll never be able to bear me a child if you're not willing. His teeth grazed her earlobe and she gasped. That's not how mating bonds work. Guilt crashed through her. She couldn't give him children, but that was what he wanted. She should tell him. But his mouth was on her neck, hot kisses trailing down her throat. She'd tell him later. Cypher's mouth claimed hers. His hand fisted in her hair, and Lorelei forgot everything. The guilt, the mission, the poison necklace. She kissed him back just as fiercely. She felt his groan rumble through his chest. He lifted her without warning, setting her on the table, stepped between her knees, taking her mouth again. His lips moved to her throat, her jaw, the sensitive spot behind her ear. Bedroom, he growled. Yes, please. He lifted her again, and she wrapped her legs around his waist. Then he was lowering her onto the bed. She reached up. Her hands splayed across his chest, and he removed his shirt as she traced his abdomen. Cypher shuddered. You're beautiful, she whispered. Something flashed across his face. Surprise, vulnerability. So are you. His hands found the fastenings of her gown. His gaze raked over her slowly. Then he bent his head and kissed her collarbone, her shoulder, the swell of her breast through the fabric. Perfect, he murmured. You're perfect. His hands slid up her thighs, taking the chemise with them. When he finally touched her with a shared, desperate longing, she felt the world tilt. The pleasure built impossibly higher, and then they became one and she shattered, because something impossibly strange washed over her. Satisfaction that felt masculine, pride, fierce arousal. Suddenly her own pleasure layered with sensations that felt like they were coming from him. She frowned. What was happening? It was as if she could feel the sheer depth of his desire for her, feel the sensations coursing through him, foreign and yet undeniable. Before she could process it, Cypher was kissing her again, until she was desperate for him. More, she gasped. But what she wasn't prepared for was the emotional onslaught. The intensity of their connection sent pleasure cascading through her, his building alongside hers, and somehow she could feel him following her over. Then they lay tangled together, their breathing slowing, their hearts gradually finding the same rhythm. She started to wonder about that strange connection, but then he was kissing her again. Again, he murmured against her lips, and somehow she knew he wasn't just asking. He was desperate for it. The knowledge was intoxicating. Chapter 6. Days blurred together. There was only him. Them. Every moment together ended the same way, tangled together, breathless and sated, only to start all over again. They were insatiable. On the training grounds, when she'd gone to watch him spar, he'd caught her staring and pulled her into an empty armory without a word. "Quiet, love," he'd growled against her throat. "Unless you want the entire guard to hear what I do to you." Like it had in the library, where his hand had slid up her thigh under her gown, or the gardens at midnight where they'd taken their time until she was begging. She was addicted. To his touch, his taste, the way he made her feel. To that strange connection humming between them constantly now. The poison necklace still sat in her drawer, untouched, waiting. Every night she told herself, "Tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow." But tomorrow became next week, and next week became next month. She couldn't even bring herself to care. That night they were having dinner in his private dining room when she noticed mid-sentence that Cypher had stopped eating entirely. "What is it?" she asked. He stood abruptly, chair scraping back. "Cypher." He pulled her up, hands gripping her waist, and kissed her hard. "I need you," he growled against her lips. "Now. Can't wait." He lifted her onto the table. Plates scattered, crystal goblets tipping. Wine spilled across white linen spreading crimson stains. "You drive me insane," he muttered against her skin. "Can't focus on anything except having you." She could feel it washing over her. His craving, his need, that strange awareness between them carrying his emotions. "Always need you," he gasped against her throat. "Every moment. Never enough." "Yes." She could barely form words. "Yes, I know." Much later, as they lay tangled together in his massive bed, it occurred to Lorelei she'd never felt so connected to anyone. "What is this?" she whispered against his chest. "This connection. How come I can feel everything you feel?" "The mating bond," Cypher replied, stroking her hair. "It forms between true mates." Lorelei lifted her head to look at him. "Mates?" He met her eyes. "Dragons have one true mate. Our souls recognize each other." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "The bond lets us share sensation, emotion." His expression grew serious, vulnerable. "I knew the moment I saw you at the ball, Lorelei," he confessed, "that you were mine." Her breath caught as she remembered that first look across the ballroom. "I thought it was a spell," she admitted quietly. "So did I," he laughed, pulling her closer. "But it was just the bond, just fate telling me you're mine." His expression brightened with hope and excitement. "And it means you can give me a child," he said, his hand splayed possessively over her stomach. Lorelei went rigid, ice flooding her veins. "A child," she repeated. Cypher didn't notice, too caught up in his own thoughts. "I need an heir for succession," he said. "The Empire requires it, but it's more than that." His voice went softer. "I've been alone for so long, Lorelei. 1,000 years of duty, responsibility, isolation." Something washed over her through the connection, loneliness so deep and aching she nearly cried. "I want a family," he continued. "I want to watch a child grow, teach them, protect them." He looked at her then, eyes so vulnerable it destroyed her. "I want that with you," he said. Lorelei felt like she was drowning. The guilt was overwhelming, crushing. She couldn't give him that, couldn't give him children, because she was broken, and he had no idea. Cypher shifted, propping himself on one elbow. "Marry me," he said. Lorelei's heart stopped. "What did you just say?" He smiled. "Be my empress." His fingers traced her jaw. "My wife." She stared at him, speechless. Something warm flooded through her awareness. His certainty, his contentment, his assumption that she'd say yes. But her silence stretched too long. His smile faltered. "Lorelei?" His voice went quiet. "Do you not want to?" The vulnerability in those words destroyed her. She could feel him through the bond, the fear, the hope, the desperate need for her to say yes. And underneath it all, love. He loved her. The guilt threatened to suffocate her. She couldn't marry him, couldn't give him what he wanted. But then a thought struck her, cold and sharp. "It doesn't matter. I'm going to kill him, before he finds out." The thought should have been comforting. Instead, it made everything worse, so she kissed him instead. Desperately, trying to convey everything she couldn't say. He responded immediately. Relief flooded through the connection, taking her kiss as acceptance, and she let him believe it. They made love slower this time, more tender. He was reverent, worshipful, and washing over her through the bond, his joy, his love, his absolute certainty that this was forever. It broke her. "I love you," he whispered against her skin. "Gods, I love you." She let him think this was joy instead of heartbreak. After, Cypher fell asleep quickly, his head on her shoulder, arm draped across her waist. She looked down at him, his face peaceful in sleep, dark hair falling across his forehead. "I love him," she realized. "I'm in love with him." He wanted to marry her, wanted to build a family with her. And not only could she not give him children, but she had come here to kill him. Her hand trembled as she touched his hair. Gentle, memorizing the feel of it, of him. Could she do this? Could she actually kill him for the sake of her kingdom, now that she loved him? He murmured in his sleep as she slid out of bed. She couldn't stay, would break if she stayed. Lorelei pulled on a robe with shaking hands, moved to the door as quietly as she could. She returned to her own rooms and realized with a jolt that she hadn't been here alone in weeks. Time had blurred into a haze of him. Finally, the voice came from the shadows when she closed her door. Familiar. Unexpected. Lorelei spun, heart hammering. "Caspian?" Her brother stepped into the moonlight. He looked tired, angry, desperate. She'd been so distracted, so wrapped up in Cypher, that she hadn't noticed. "What are you doing here?" Her voice came out sharper than intended. "In my chambers?" Caspian's jaw tightened. "Waiting for you." He stepped closer. "I'm here to remind you what we set out to do. Why we came here. What you promised." She shook her head. "Caspian, But he cut her off, stepping closer, his eyes intense. "It's time, Lorelei." His voice dropped, deadly serious. "Time we kill the Dragon Emperor, once and for all." Chapter 7. "We have to kill him tonight," Caspian said, "before the enchantment he has on you takes hold completely." Lorelei shook her head, still reeling from finding him in her chambers. "He doesn't have an enchantment on me," she explained. "That's not what this is." "You've barely left his bedroom for the past 2 months, sister?" Caspian interrupted. 2 months? Lorelei tried to count backward, to remember when she'd last slept in her own bed. She couldn't. Time had blurred into a haze of tangled sheets and stolen kisses. "It's not magic," she said weakly. "Well, it is magic, but it's not what you think. It's the mating bond, Caspian. It's real. Listen to yourself." Caspian grabbed her shoulders. "Do you hear what you're saying? You sound possessed, Lorelei." Doubt crept in, cold and insidious. "I know what I feel." "Do you?" Caspian released her. "Do you remember why we came here? What the dragons did to us? To Elvina?" Guilt crashed over her in waves. When was the last time she'd even thought about Elvina? "I remember," Lorelei whispered, but the words felt hollow. "He's at the center of it all," Caspian continued. "Every dragon answers to him. Every sacrifice, every life destroyed. He commanded it. If we kill him, we weaken them." "As his empress, I could do more," Lorelei protested. "I could make sure the peace lasts, obtain everything we want without war, without more death." Caspian's laugh cut through the air. "His empress! He wants you to be his empress now, does he?" "He does." Lorelei lifted her chin. "He asked me to marry him. He loves me. I don't doubt that." Pity flickered across Caspian's face. "And how will he feel," he asked, "when he realizes you're infertile, sister?" Lorelei's breath caught. "How will he feel when he realizes that you can't give him the thing he longs for most in this world?" Caspian took a step closer. "You really think he'll make you his empress, then?" She opened her mouth, closed it. No words would come. Because this was the fear that kept her awake at night. "At best, you'll be his mistress," Caspian said. "His plaything. And playthings don't end wars." He saw her protest forming and raised a hand. "Oh, I see that he desires you. I'd have to be blind to miss it." His jaw tightened. But would his desire for one human woman stop his entire race from dominating ours? Doubt crept in like poison. Because he was right, wasn't he? She'd seen Cypher rule, had felt through the bond how seriously he took his responsibilities. He was emperor before he was anything else, including hers. We must end this, sister. Caspian held out the necklace. He won't see it coming. A few drops while he sleeps will suffice. Lorelei stared at the poison, and her mind flooded with images. Cypher asleep in her bed, the way he always reached for her in his sleep, pulling her close. I can't, she said, shaking her head. Lorelei looked up at her brother with tears burning in her eyes. I can't, brother, she admitted. I love him. The admission hung in the air. Final. For a long moment, Caspian just stared at her. He sighed, long and heavy. Sister, he said quietly, I didn't want to have to do this. Lorelei's stomach dropped. Do what? Caspian looked away. Break your heart, he said. Humiliate you. What are you talking about? She whispered. Caspian finally looked up. The Emperor has been manipulating you, Lorelei. Lorelei shook her head. No. Before you, he continued, he offered marriage to several other princesses, Annabella, Celeste. He told all of them that he wanted them to bear his heir, that they'd be his empress. Impossible. The denial came automatically, but even as Lorelei shook her head, her mind was already working. The ball, the line of princesses, the way Cypher had walked past all of them, assessing them like candidates. He wouldn't do that, she said, wavering. Ask Annabella, Caspian said quietly. Ask Celeste. That first night at the ball, he chose Annabella. Took her to his chambers. Do you know what he did after he dismissed her and sent for you? Lorelei shook her head, throat tightening. Stop! He went to Celeste, Caspian sighed. Then to Matilda. He's playing all of you, sister, keeping his options open in case one doesn't work out. We have a bond, Lorelei cried. I feel it. I feel him. That may be so, Caspian said. But sister, despite this bond that may have surprised even him, what he wants most in the world is an heir. You've felt it yourself, haven't you? Lorelei closed her eyes against the memory. Cypher's loneliness washing over her, his longing for family, for a child. He'll stop at nothing to get it, Caspian said, even if it means courting 9 human women at once. He said he loved me, she said, her voice breaking. I'm sure he does love you. In his way. Caspian pulled her into his arms. As much as a dragon can love anything. But love doesn't change his priorities, sister. Lorelei's mind was reeling. The truth is that dragons have trouble sustaining a pregnancy, Caspian said. Ask around. You'll see it's true. Their numbers are declining because they can barely reproduce. Why do you think Cypher suddenly extended an olive branch to a species he's spent centuries ignoring? Lorelei shrugged. It's because no dragon has managed to give him a child. But recently, one dragon king found a human mate who bore him an heir. Caspian pulled back to look at her. Cypher has been obsessed with testing the theory. Don't you see? This is what this has all been about. Finding a human who can give him what dragons can't. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. The timing of Cypher's peace offer, the way he'd gathered princesses from across the human kingdoms. And because the chances are so low, Caspian continued, he's going to try with all 9 of you. Whoever can give him a child gets the crown. The rest... He shook his head. If you die trying to bear him an heir, he'll find others to replace you. You don't matter to him, Lorelei, Caspian whispered. Not the way you think you do. Not the way you matter to me. Tears burned hot tracks down Lorelei's cheeks. She wanted to deny it, but everything he was saying made such horrible, perfect sense. She'd seen Cypher with the other women, had felt through the bond how desperately he wanted a child, and she couldn't give him one. So, why would he choose her over the others? They're not like us, Lorelei. Caspian's voice pulled her back. They're cold-blooded ancient creatures desperate to reproduce and strengthen their numbers. And Cypher is their emperor, Caspian continued. His first duty is to his people. Of course, that would be his priority, over the love of a human who won't live even a fraction of his life. Lorelei crumbled. She'd felt the weight of the Empire pressing down on Cypher constantly. How could one human woman, even his mate, compete with that? Even so, she whispered. He swore he would bring peace between our peoples. He promised to get us to cooperate. Caspian's voice sharpened. To make human women willing to bear the risk. Has he told you? Has he told any of you about the real dangers you're facing? He stepped back. If you became pregnant, Lorelei, do you know what the chances are that you'd survive carrying a dragon child to term? She shook her head mutely. Close to none, Lorelei, and he hasn't warned you, hasn't given you a real choice. Caspian's jaw clenched. Because to him, you're just a human, a means to an end. Enough, she screamed. Enough, please. Her legs gave out. Lorelei sank to the floor, her hands pressed over her face as sobs racked her body. She loved him. Gods, she loved him so much it felt like her heart was being ripped out. But how could she trust that love when everything Caspian said made such perfect, horrible sense? Her brother knelt beside her and pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry, he murmured. I know it's not fair. They're protecting themselves, making sure their species survives. But we have to do the same, Lorelei. We have to protect our own. His arms tightened. It's our duty, to our people, to the girls like Elvina who can't protect themselves. Elvina, who had screamed for help, who Lorelei had failed to save. I know you don't want to hurt him, Caspian said, but you must do this, for your kingdom, for our people. Lorelei's mind was a chaos of warring thoughts. She loved Cypher, that was undeniable. But if he'd been manipulating her, if the bond was just a trick, if she was just one option among many, if he'd been willing to risk her life just to get an heir, could she really let that stand? Could she put her own heart above the safety of her people? If Cypher was thinking of his people first, then she had to do the same, even if it destroyed her. I'll do my duty, she heard herself say. The words came from far away, like someone else was speaking. Her voice sounded hollow, empty, like something inside her had died already. Chapter 8. The guards outside Cypher's chambers didn't even blink when she approached. They opened the doors with small bows. The room was dark except for moonlight streaming through the tall windows. And him. Cypher lay sprawled across black silk sheets, one arm flung across the space where she'd been sleeping. He was on his stomach, face turned toward her pillow, seeking her out even in sleep. I love you, Lorelei thought, standing frozen in the doorway, the poison necklace burning cold against her palm. She couldn't move, could only stare at him and feel her heart breaking. She loved him so much it felt like her chest was splitting open. And he'd betrayed her. But it hadn't stopped him from courting multiple women, from lying to her about the others being his lovers. She was disposable, one candidate among many. Lorelei forced herself to move, one step, then another. She reached the bed. He looked younger in sleep, peaceful. The man who'd held her through the night, the man she was about to kill. The bed dipped under her weight and Cypher shifted immediately, his hand finding her thigh. The touch nearly undid her. Her hand was shaking as she pulled the stopper from the poison vial. She leaned over him, bringing the vial closer. She thought of Elvina screaming as the dragon took her. It's your duty. But when she looked at his face, all she could think was that she wanted to kiss him instead. She reached out with her free hand and touched his lips. Her fingers traced the line of them. I love you, she thought desperately. I'm sorry. The vial touched his lips. Then his eyes opened. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Then he smiled, that devastating smile that had undone her from the very beginning. Can't sleep? He murmured, voice rough with sleep. The voice he used only with her, or so she had believed. His gaze started to drift closed again, trusting. Then he saw the vial. His smile died. Lorelei? He asked, confused. His eyes sharpened. She watched him focus on the small glass vial, understanding dawning. What is this? He asked. She tried to pull away, but his hand shot out, catching her wrist. Lorelei. His voice changed, sharpened with fear. Were you trying to poison me? He said it like he couldn't quite believe it. She met his eyes. His expression crumbled, not all at once, but piece by piece. Through the bond, devastation crashed over her. His hurt, his shock, his absolute incomprehension. "Why?" he whispered. The question shook her so badly that rage rose to fill the cracks. She jerked her wrist free and stood, moving away from the bed. He followed immediately, swinging his legs out of bed. "You dare ask me that!" she cried out. "You dare ask when—" "When what?" Cypher interrupted. "What have I done, Lorelei, apart from falling in love with you?" She whirled to face him. "And what good is your love when it means nothing?" Her voice cracked. "When it hasn't stopped you from betraying me?" Cypher looked like she'd struck him. "Betraying you?" he repeated. "How?" "I know you've been courting all the other human princesses," she accused. "I know you asked them to be your empress, too, to bear your child." "No," Cypher protested, face going pale. And through the bond she felt his guilt, sharp and undeniable. So it was true. "No," he said again. "That's, Lorelei, that was before I—" "Before what?" She cut him off. "Before you realized human lives were worth something too? Before I realized you were my mate," his voice rose. "The other half of my soul. Before I knew what we could be." "Right," Lorelei nodded sharply. "Before that, though, you had no qualms putting our lives on the line, having us risk death trying to bear you a child." Her voice dropped to something dangerous. "Tell me, Cypher, were you ever going to warn me that pregnancy would likely kill me? Or were you planning to wait until I was already carrying your child to mention that little detail?" He looked startled. "It wouldn't," he said. "You're my mate. Our bond will sustain you, keep you safe. I would never—" "And what about the other princesses?" She cut through his explanation. "How will they be sustained? Or do you have a bond with all of us?" "Of course not." Cypher took a step toward her. "I've never slept with them. Never even— I merely discussed the possibility of marriage, courted them in case the bond didn't." "I don't believe you," Lorelei cried out. Through the bond, she felt his shock, his pain. "Lorelei, Caspian told me," she continued, "that you slept with them, that you promised them all the same things you promised me." "He's lying!" Cypher exclaimed. "Lorelei, please. You're my only lover. I swear it on my life, on my throne, on everything I am. I told you, only a true mate bond would result in a viable pregnancy. I would never risk the other princesses' lives needlessly." "And why not?" she asked. "When you've cared so little about human lives that you've been requiring sacrifices for decades." "I never required those sacrifices," Cypher snapped. "It was you, humans, who decided out of fear that you needed to appease us." He ran a hand through his hair. "We didn't correct the misunderstanding because if you could be so paranoid, so ready to believe the worst of us without evidence, then why would we trust you not to turn against us?" "Oh, please!" Lorelei's laugh was sharp. "Why would you even fear us? You're more powerful. And you're more numerous," Cypher cut across her. "Our numbers are in decline, Lorelei. A dragon child hasn't been born in years." "You took those sacrifices," Lorelei insisted. "So you'd leave us alone," Cypher said, his voice going soft. "But we never harmed them. They live among us now. Safe. I can take you to them if you'd like. Let you see for yourself." "How can I believe you?" Lorelei interrupted. "When you invited me here only to keep me as a hostage? When I saw with my own eyes you courting all those others?" She paused, swallowed painfully. "When it could have been any of them, and it would have made no difference to you?" she added, making Cypher recoil. "How can you say that?" Cypher said, anguished. "After everything we've shared." "Because it's true!" she cried out. "Me or them, it doesn't matter as long as a bond forms, does it? Would you have even chosen me without one? You didn't like me at first. Didn't choose me that first night." Her voice broke. "How do I know this bond isn't some kind of spell? You really think I'd lie to you?" Cypher asked. "About loving you?" Lorelei hesitated. She could feel him through the connection, his pain so profound it made her knees weak. It all felt real. But Caspian's words echoed in her mind. His people were dying, and he needed to save them. "Yes," she whispered, "I think you would, because you're the Emperor, and this is your duty, just like killing you is mine." Cypher went utterly still. Something shuddered behind his eyes. "Fine," he whispered, He extended his hand, palm up. Fine. Lorelei stared at his hand, confused. Give it to me, Cypher said. Give you what? Lorelei frowned. You know what. Horror flooded through her. He meant the poison. He was going to have her arrested, executed. She handed him the vial with trembling fingers, waited for him to call the guards. But he didn't. Instead, he looked at the vial for a long moment, then at her. Slowly, he lifted it toward his mouth, his eyes never leaving hers. What are you doing? Lorelei asked, panic spiking through her. I'm showing you that you can trust me, Cypher said simply. What are you talking about? Through the bond, she felt his determination. Stop! She was shouting now. It's poison, you idiot! It'll kill you! Cypher met her gaze. It won't kill me, he said softly, because you're going to save me. The vial was at his lips now. What are you talking about? She shook her head frantically. I can't save you. Cypher, listen to me. There's no antidote. Don't need one, Cypher declared. And then, before she could stop him, before she could knock it from his hand, he brought the vial to his lips and drank. Chapter 9. For one crystalline moment, nothing happened. Cypher just stood there in the moonlight, bare-chested and beautiful, looking at her with those burning eyes. Then his breath hitched. His hand flew to his chest, fingers splaying wide over his heart, and his eyes widened, pupils dilating until only a thin ring of gold remained. What did you do? Lorelei cried out, grabbing his face between her hands. His skin was already changing, going clammy and cold. Cypher, what did you do? She repeated. He was breathing too fast now, short, shallow pants. I'm fine, Cypher managed. Or I will be. Lorelei, listen. You need to sit down, she interrupted. Terror clawed up her throat. She could feel him through the bond, feel something foreign and vicious spreading through his veins like black ice. Guards! Lorelei screamed. The massive doors burst open. 4 guards poured in with weapons drawn. Get healers! Lorelei's voice cracked. Now! The Emperor has been poisoned! The guards froze. The captain looked between her and Cypher with dawning horror. Poisoned? By what? Just get them! Lorelei didn't have time for this. Because through the bond, she could feel Cypher's thoughts fragmenting, growing dazed and distant. I feel strange, he said, blinking heavily. Lorelei, His knees buckled. She caught him as he fell, barely. His weight drove her backward. The marble was cold beneath them. Cypher's head landed in her lap, and she cradled it immediately. Cypher, she pleaded, stay with me. His eyes were unfocused now. What is happening? He asked, confused. Tears welled up in Lorelei's eyes. Why did you drink it? She sobbed. Why would you do that? You absolute idiot. Why? He brought her hand to his face, nuzzling into her palm. I thought. He was slurring now. I thought you wanted me to. The words were a dagger between her ribs. No, Lorelei choked out. No, I wouldn't have. I couldn't. Cypher, I'm so sorry. I was just angry. I was hurt. I didn't mean... Angry? Cypher's voice was dreamy now. With me? Through the bond, she felt everything. Sharp pain radiating from his chest. Difficulty breathing. Or stay with me, Lorelei begged. The healers are coming. Just stay with me. I'll stay with you always, Cypher murmured. He smiled up at her, peaceful, relieved. You're mine, he continued, his voice soft. I waited centuries for you. His eyelids dropped. So glad I found you. So glad... No. Lorelei slapped his face, not hard but sharp enough to startle. Don't fall asleep. Cypher, you have to stay awake. His eyes opened again, confused and glassy. Then the doors crashed open again. The healers burst through, 3 of them moving with practiced urgency. What happened? The lead healer asked, already dropping to his knees beside them. He was poisoned, Lorelei said. The healer's hands stilled. She looked up sharply. Poisoned? By what? There's no poison in existence that could harm the Emperor. His dragon blood is immune to... There is now, Lorelei said. She met the woman's eyes. And I gave it to him. Silence crashed through the room. The guard stared at her in shock. Arrest her, a guard said, voice tight with fury. She just confessed to assassinating. No! Cypher's voice cut through the chaos, weak but commanding. His hand shot out, grabbing Lorelei's wrist. Back away, all of you, he said. You're speaking of your future empress. Be more respectful. The young guard gaped. But Our Majesty, she poisoned you. She did not, Cypher interrupted, struggling to sit. I poisoned myself. More stunned silence. Lorelei started crying in earnest, great, shaking sobs. It's my fault, Lorelei gasped. Cypher's hand left her wrist and found her face. His touch was gentle despite the tremors running through him. You're my mate, he said softly, but with so much certainty and devotion. You can heal me. Lorelei stared at him through her tears. I'm not a healer. You don't need to be, Cypher said. His eyes were closing again. She could feel him slipping away. Only you can save me, Lorelei, Cypher whispered. Then his hand fell from her face. His body went completely limp in her arms. Cypher? Lorelei shook him gently, then harder when he didn't respond. Nothing. Through the bond, she felt the poison seeping through him like darkness spreading across light. I don't understand, Lorelei exclaimed. The head healer was staring at Cypher with an expression caught between horror and fascination. I think I know what he means, she said slowly. Then tell me, Lorelei screamed. Through mate bonds, you can share life force, the healer explained. It's a power unique to true dragon mates, a way for bonded pairs to sustain each other when one is dying. But I'm not a dragon, Lorelei started. You don't have to be, the healer said. She leaned forward, her eyes urgent. One of the dragon kings, Jesper of the Northern Territories, took a human mate. Last year there was an assassination attempt on his life. Poison arrows. He should have died within hours. Lorelei's mind flashed back. The girl they'd been trying to save. Ophelia. The massive white dragon she'd shot with 3 poisoned arrows. Try, the healer urged. You're the Emperor's mate. If anyone can save him, it's you. Lorelei looked down at Cypher. His face was pale as death. His lips were going blue. She pressed her hands to his chest and tried. Closed her eyes and reached for that connection between them. Nothing happened. It's not working, she panicked. Keep trying, the healer said. Focus on the bond, on what connects you. But all Lorelei could feel was him dying. What about one of the other princesses? She asked, grasping at anything. Maybe they could. Maybe if one of them tried. His Majesty doesn't share a bond with anyone else, the healer said firmly. True mates are rare, Your Highness. Once in a lifetime. You are his. There is no one else. The words hit her like lightning. There is no one else. And Cypher had drunk poison. Actual poison that was killing him right now. Just to prove that to her. He'd done it all on purpose to make her see, she realized. That stupid, foolish, arrogant, beautiful dragon. Rage flooded through her. Hot and fierce. It burned away the fear, the panic, leaving only fury. How dare he? How dare he make her watch him die just to prove a point? She was going to save him. And then she was going to kill him. You don't get to do this, Lorelei growled. Her hands pressed harder against his chest. You don't get to prove your love by dying, you absolute idiot. Something shifted. A warmth bloomed under her palms. Faint at first, then growing stronger. It's working! One of the younger guards gasped. But Lorelei barely heard them. She was focused entirely on the bond, on the golden thread connecting her to Cypher, on pouring everything she had into it. Her anger, her determination, her absolute refusal to let him go. You're mine, she thought fiercely, and I'm not done with you yet. The light grew brighter, spilling out from between her fingers. She felt it flowing through the connection, her life force mixing with his. Come back to me. That's an order, you bastard. Cypher gasped. His eyes flew open, glowing so bright they were almost white. Everyone in the room gasped. Through the bond, Lorelei felt the cold and pain receding, felt warmth flooding back into him. Cypher, she breathed. His eyes found hers immediately. He smiled, then frowned, confused, taking in the tears running down her cheeks. Lorelei? He asked. His hand came up slowly to cup her cheek. You saved me, he said dazedly. You idiot! Lorelei screamed. She grabbed his shoulders with both hands and shook him. "You absolute fool! You could have died!" Then she kissed him, pressed her mouth to his with all the fear and relief and overwhelming love crashing through her, kissed him like she could make him understand how terrified she'd been, how much he meant to her, how she would never doubt him again. Cypher's hand slid into her hair, pulling her closer despite his exhaustion, kissing her with lazy contentment. When they finally broke apart, he was still smiling. "I love you," he murmured, his voice soft and drowsy but utterly certain. And despite everything, despite the fear and the pain and the poison that had nearly killed him, Lorelei laughed through her tears. Epilogue. 3 months later, Lorelei lay tangled in silk sheets with her husband, her mate, both of them still breathing hard, skin slick with sweat. Cypher's arm was wrapped possessively around her waist, his other hand lazily stroking through her hair. He pressed kisses to her temple, her cheek, her lips, like he couldn't get enough even after everything they'd just done. "I love you," he murmured against her mouth. "I know," she said, smiling. Then softer. "I love you too." She could feel his contentment through the bond, warm and golden and absolutely certain. 3 months of marriage and he still looked at her like she was a miracle. But there was something she needed to tell him. Her smile faltered, her hand pressed against his chest, feeling his heartbeat slow. "Cypher," she started, then hesitated. "Remember how I told you I was infertile?" His expression changed immediately, went soft and pained. He cupped her face with devastating gentleness. "My love," Cypher said, his voice tender. "I told you. You are my mate and nothing will change that. I have you. I'm not alone anymore. That's all I need. That's everything." Lorelei's chest tightened with love. She kissed him to stop the words, to stop him from trying to convince her he didn't care about the one thing she knew he wanted most. When she pulled back, she was smiling. "I know," she said, "and I'm glad I'm enough for you." Cypher smiled back, stroking her cheek. "You're more than enough. You're—" "But also," Lorelei interrupted, her smile widening, "turns out I'm pregnant." Cypher froze. "What?" His voice was strangled, shocked, like she'd just told him dragons could fly to the moon. "I couldn't believe it either," Lorelei said, watching his face carefully. "But the healers confirmed it this morning. 3 times, actually, because I kept making them check again." "What?" Cypher said again. His hand moved to her stomach, pressing there with trembling fingers. "You're going to be a father," Lorelei confirmed. For a moment, Cypher just stared at her. Then he laughed. Pure joy, bright and unrestrained, seeped through their bond. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her deep. "A child," he whispered against her lips between kisses. "Our child." "I know," she said, laughing now too, tears streaming down